I'm going to jump straight right in. We've got a fabulous topic for discussion this evening, and good evening to the entire panel.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Hi.
All right. With the pleasantries in place, I think we're all equally aware about the unimaginable scale with which brands across industries have leapfrogged in the last 18 months. The pandemic has been the sole catalyst and accelerator to the way businesses have transformed. Haven't our conversations changed almost overnight, right? From being asked, do you have a website, to straight away jumping into establishing an omni-channel, seamless and personalized e-commerce experience. The customer has been wanting it all. Find out, how has this overnight switch been for each one of you? Vipul, should we start off with you?
Thanks, Shubhani. Just to give you context, we have presence both online and offline. We have over 2,000 stores offline, and obviously we have a huge base of customers who are shopping with us online. Right. So just to give a brief background, the data from last year to this year shows that there has been a huge jump in the online business, whereas the offline business did suffer to a large extent. We had to revise our AOPs multiple times because we didn't know when the lockdowns are going to get over. Towards the fag end of the year, we saw that restrictions were going up, but then again, April, May, we saw clamp down happening again. So that affected our business. But having said that, now it's looking up. Education sector is opening up. The college students are getting up for revenge shopping, I would say. Shopping to the cart is full, right? So yeah, so that is a good sign. The sun is going to shine very soon on the horizon for us. So we are preparing ourselves for the upcoming festive. Dussehra is down the corner, followed by Diwali. And December, we have the Christmas and the New Year USS sales coming up. So pretty positive. The buying pattern is looking positive for us. Now, talking about providing great consumer experience, or a seamless experience for the consumers. What is more important is the category management. How we look at historic data of consumers. What needs to be sold to them. What are you looking at? The entire category management. If Shivani is online and shopping has come to us for the first time, what is she browsing? The browsing history helps us understand you better. But when it comes to offline, that's the challenge. Shivani is a mobile number for us. Yeah. So that's how we track our consumers. But then, unfortunately, that's how it has been. But yeah, there is an area of improvement for us to know when is Shivani's birthday. How well she is well versed with social media and things like that. So tying up all the ends for Shivani as a consumer for us, right? Then what matters is the second point is the journey. The journey has to be seamless for the consumer. From the time they check into our online portal to the checkout part, right? Then I need to focus on the discovery part. If Amit has come onto our website and is looking for something for a special occasion, so I should be able to offer him the new collection. He needs to discover what is new, what is trending. I should be able to guide him and tell him that this is what is trending. Would you like to be shopping with us for this? Something like that. And see, there are something called reminders. I would have shopped at Amazon or any other e-commerce site, and I would have left my search there. The reminders can act like a rewarding as well as reprimanding. The reason I'm saying is at times it really helps me recall that last time I was searching for shoes, I forgot to check out. So might as well buy it out now. Reprimanding because some customers feel it is intruding that you please don't remind me of what I need to buy.
Right.
They take it personally, right? So that's the last part is the tech support, which has to be the backbone. The architecture has to be really strong enough to sustain high traffic coming during festive or EOSS period. So tech support has to be really strong. Last but not the least is the payment option, which has to be hygienic, that I don't have a dropout at the payment stage, and I need to tie up with all the financial solutions which are available, a Paytm or a HDFC or a ICICI or a SBI, to offer convenient payment solutions with some offers from our payment partners.
I think that's very well put, Vipul. It's like an entire end-to-end great customer experiences, and that was my first ingredient for today for ensuring a booming e-commerce as the topic defines itself, right? So So you did touch upon recognizing a unified consumer, right? Whether it's online or offline.
Yeah.
The entire switch towards wanting to move towards identifying a consumer by the name, by the face, and not merely a mobile number.
Absolutely.
Is probably the future of where we are heading to. So that was great. That was the first ingredient that I really wanted to talk about, great customer experiences. What we will do right now is we're going to be talking about two important parts. One is identifying the key ingredients for a successful e-commerce brand. And two, what does it take to sustain those ingredients and thrive in the years to come? Spoken about the first key ingredient, I'm going to now come over to the second one, which is the importance of providing digital yet physical experiences. 69% of buyers expect at least half of the purchases to be made through digital channels, while surprisingly, 23% of consumers still prefer only physical channel. You can only imagine what is that Venn diagram for where both them confluence together. It is important to invest in digital, but can we forget the physical? Obviously, we can't. My question is to Amit from Future Lifestyle Fashions, the flagship fashion business of Future Group, operating with more than 300 stores in 90 plus cities and occupying a fascinating 5.7 million square feet of retail space. How does the transition look for you, Amit? How do you create that fine balance, and how do you cope with this dual expectation of the consumer?
Thanks, Shivani, for this wonderful introduction. I'm going to make few firm statements. The future is a combination of a physical and a digital world. And that is what, it's coming, to us, and this particular pandemic, has only acted more like a catalyst or probably an accelerator, to making this whole thing happen. There's no longer that bifurcation that it's only the millennials or the baby boomers or the Gen Zs who are going to be adopting technology. Now it's been made compulsory for each and everyone to adopt to that technology.
Sure.
And, this was already happening. Okay. So, we are that first era from the retail where we've seen everything happening. Retail, an organized retail in India is around 30 years old. It's not that, it has a huge, and we are probably the first generation people who are experiencing it. And, there were some contradicting viewpoints also which came, throughout this whole activity, that when I was young, I was in college, the malls had just started to come up, and people had said the malls are going to be the next big thing, and it's going to take over everything in the fashion retail or probably the organized retail part of it. As I grew a little older, and there was this whole activity which came, the Y2K problem, that digital is going to take over everything and the physical retail is going to be completely shut.
Yeah.
Suddenly, 10 years down the line, both were able to find their own spaces out there. Everybody had evolved, during that. And then suddenly we were hit with this pandemic where, we were forced to not come out of our houses, but yet we had to, get our needs consumed. So it's a very different phase altogether. But as I said, this is already happening. So, and we were seamlessly accepting it. It's just that this pandemic made it very, very clear to us that this is the way forward.
Absolutely. I think, Amit, it just took me back to the time when you said Y2K, right? I remember how berserk the entire IT industry went with, wanting to just make that shift in that digit, which would change all the systems and processes, right? Prabhakar, we have you on the call as well. What has your views been in terms of, how has this entire shift been for you as a consumer? Have you been opting more of, physical experience out of more of a digital experience?
Okay, you're talking about our consumers or me as a consumer? Sorry.
You as a consumer, Prabhakar.
See, I have been a digital convert much before COVID. Only that even the smaller things for which we used to kind of walk into the convenience store, that also changed to kind of digital, all thanks to COVID. So so that's an amazing part. And my wife, who was more comfortable talking to and going out, to do those small purchases, she also got hooked up to the app. So that's the change which has happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's how we've all seen this change happening, right? There used to be a time wherein we used to wonder, does the brand even have a e-commerce website or even an app for that matter? But now that is the future, and that is where we are. We're already leapfrogged there. Fantastically put there, Amit and Prabhakar. This brings me to yes.
There's one thing which I wanted to add, and which is a continuation of that earlier statement, is we as marketers, when we are asked to do a strategy, okay, the journey of the customer experience becomes a prime importance for us. And that journey is what is the secret sauce for the success of the strategy. And, only a marketer has these special skills of an art and a science to make it happen. In this whole thing, we've learned certain things the hard way, okay? Yeah. The training cannot be given to the customers. The training needs to be given to our own staff. Okay. And hence, there were so many things which came up during this last 2 years period, who thought that they're the super apps and they were the 5-star apps, which eventually got just 1 ratings from the customers because they were not able to promise the customer experience and deliver that same customer experience way back to them. So that is something, which is very, very critical for a strategy. When we say it's a bold statement to make that it's going to be a combination of a digital and a physical world, but making it standing true to your brand's essence is also very important. Example to be given is we at Central, okay, we are the large size fashion departmental store, and we are famous for our assortment. We are famous for our depth in the fashion window which is there. But at the same time, if I'm not able to give a similar experience and I stand true to my digital presence with the same kind of depth and the width, then I'm not delivering the same thing, to the consumer. And that's when the whole customer journey starts, shifting a little bit, and which is where the success and the failure of a strategy, becomes very critical.
Absolutely. In fact, going one step further to that, we at Accenture did a very recent research, right? And what came out of it was that 80% of the brands and retailers felt that they were giving a great consumer experience or a great customer experience. When mapped on, only 8% of the customers felt that all of their expectations were being met. So tell me something, how is it today with, Vipul, you just mentioned that, schools are opening, colleges are opening, people are coming out of their homes today. Yet, the whole hookup on digital medium, shopping on digital mediums has become the way to go. How is Reliance today welcoming their consumers back to stores? How are we going one step further in providing them a great consumer experience inside the store?
So Now the stores have opened up. Obviously, we're maintaining the safety and sanitization process in check. Once a customer tries merchandise, it's sanitized and again, put on display. It's kept aside for some time, and then it's put back to the store. So in terms of health and hygiene of the consumers, it's all taken care. Well, customers are still wary of walking into a store. Still, the reason is store happens to be a congregation point for many customers, and this being festive, people would still like to try this ethnic, try it with a Western. So mix and match also is happening at store. So consumers are walking in, but then they are still wary. We are still seeing a lot of attraction happening on our online channels like Ajio and Trends.com. So yes, we are welcoming them when they are coming to store, but then we are also trying to capitalize the audience which is coming online.
I think to sum that all up, Vipul, Reliance is one brand which is fresh, smart, digital, and consumer driven. So it shouldn't be difficult for you to have your consumers back in and happy, right?
True.
All right. Having said that, we spoke about consumer experiences, a phygital experience providing in-store. Let's move on towards the third ingredient of today. And this for me is one of the most enabling ingredients, which is adapting to evolving technology architecture. So at Accenture, one of our foundational pillars to help businesses thrive is stack strategically, which means that business strategies and technology strategies are becoming inseparable, right? We no longer talk about a different business strategy and a different technology strategy, right? We've now, the lines have blurred and they have probably become one and the same thing because they have to work in tandem together. And there are more technology choices to make than ever before, right? Right from cloud deployments, AI models, edge services, hardware design, computation. Industry competition is set to be like a battleground ever right now, more than what it has been ever before. Technology stacks are expanding seamlessly. It's a new era where there can be no leadership without technology leadership. I'm going to go ahead and pose my question to Mehriyar Patel. With 120 years of legacy driven by infrastructure, innovation, and impeccability, how has Gina and company kept pace with adapting to changing technology?
Right. So, Shivani, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and especially what Vipul, Amit, and Prabhakar mentioned. I think without technology today, we are left high and dry. So one of the biggest point which is coming, which you rightly mentioned, is today in the last 16 months, businesses are transforming themselves. So if you look at all lines of business, whether you look at retail, banking, or you look at any other industries, digitization, commerce, I would call it, or digital, which you mentioned rightly, is coming up upfront there. So what is going to be a strategy over the next 3 years? Is going to be an incumbent factor into rolling out those large-scale plans as to what you want to do, right? So when you say that a business is going to transform, what gets aligned quickly is the technology piece. And if you look at the earlier days, I was part of retail for almost 10 years. Earlier, the brick and mortar stores, even if one-day billing is not available, you can always go online. But look at the situation today. If an e-commerce site is not available to the consumers, there is millions of dollars of loss. So that's where the technology comes in place. The biggest part, Shibani, if you look at the offers which are running for the last 6 days, especially the XYZ festivities or whatever, which you call and not name anybody, you have real-time updates of rates, which is happening. Real-time display of item, what is available. If anything goes wrong in this display, itself is a loss to an organization. So where has the technology reached today? when we're talking about availability of technology to the consumer has to be there anywhere, anytime. That type of a situation has really come up in place. You can't tell a customer, you please come into my store only. Your e-commerce site is available, please have it. Okay, if you don't have your site available, can you be hosted with a giants like a retail or a Future Group or Amazon, and then have your goods available? So there are possibilities for a business to grow has become endless. And the direction change in the last 16 months is that it is evolving into new circumstances, new thoughts, and new directions, which are going to be one of the very big game changers. So coming back to the architecture mode, which I would like to talk about, is how do you go ahead and set this up? So we at Jina, basically, we run supply chain for all the verticals, the express, the 3PL. We also run freight forwarding. So those are some of the things that we cater to. And when we talk about businesses to these organizations whom we reach out to, technology is there at 90% plus. And those are all the automated levels of technologies. And today, no technology is as a choice. It is a choice of customer who would come and demand from us. I think that is very, very critical to understand that today there is no choice of a solution which can be provided that can be sacrosanct to say that I will work with only XYZ as an OEM partner. The choice is available. We are ready to do business. See, that is the openness in terms of accepting. The second is the processes aligned. And what are you trying to run on your systems is also equally important.
Yes.
And the third part is delivery of those platforms. Today, businesses will not be able to wait for delivery of technology platforms. It has to happen tomorrow. So how are you going to evolve and deliver that? So I think you rightly mentioned about cloud and AI and mobility and all those standards and how to then design the whole architecture. That is where we as CIOs come into play. And that's what we've been doing over a period of time.
I think that's fantastically put, Hariha, because the focus on technology is something that just cannot be taken away from, right? I'm sure each one of us on the panel, with the kind of exposure that we've had to the pandemic, we've all had to adopt to technology seamlessly. And that seamless adoption of technology comes in various forms, right? That's where I bring in the fourth key ingredient. I'm just being cognizant of the time out here. So the fourth key ingredient that I'm going to be talking about today is the ability to perpetually innovate, right? I'm going to say that one more time, to be the ability to perpetually innovate. Now, we are all living in times of almost unprecedented changes and technological disruption, right? For us at Accenture, innovation is a culture. The ability to innovate at the right time across the right areas is extremely vital. Prabhakar, I'm going to come to you, right, with this particular point wherein the average company lifespan, right, of an S&P 500 index is experiencing a consistent downward graph. I mean, it used to be about 90 years way back in the 1940s, right? And today, or in the next couple of years, it's going to probably go down to a meager 14%, 14 years. 50% of the companies in the S&P 500 are expected to be replaced, right, over the next 3 years, maybe.
Yeah.
How is it that, where is that correlation coming in? What do you see as the correlation between digital transformations, pace of innovation, and the company's growth? Where are we seeing this headed? And how do we actually, since you are the guru of angel broking, I'd like to know and see how does the crystal ball look from your lens?
Yeah. So thanks, Shivani. I feel 100-year-old already. And talking about innovation and change, let me tell you, angel broking is now Angel One.
Yeah.
So, so let me start with that. We're talking about the perpetual innovation and that we have done angel broking to Angel One. We have been in this business for more than 25 years. And now we are like in top 3. In almost all parameters, we are number 2, number 3, competing with the best of the fintech firm out there, and very, very worthy competition. Now, your point is exactly right about, the S&P 500. I think, just to put some more number, I think S&P 500 originally way back in 1955. And by 2016, only 60 companies were alive or maybe running from the original 500. So those changes are very, very fast. I had a good fortune of going through Professor Clayton Christensen Harvard course on disruptive innovation, 3 months back. And as a part of my study there, I kind of looked at a lot of case studies from Netflix, which is far more popular than other case studies across sectors. One thing which really struck me is that there are two kinds of strategy. One is a deliberate strategy, and one is an emergent strategy. Deliberate strategy is something where things are known. The competitive strengths are known in a sector. We know what is the business model, who is the consumer, what is their consumption pattern, and many things are known. Then you go for a deliberate strategy. Okay, let's assume for a moment today in Ola, Uber, just on your business, you can use a deliberate strategy, right? But in some other cases, there's something called emergent strategy. Emergent strategy is when things are not clear, technologies are not standardized, consumer behavior is shifting very fast. The platforms are not well established. That's where emergent strategy has to be used. So if I look at from there, no business can operate today with a deliberate strategy beyond 3 years or because almost all businesses are changing so fast. Consumers are changing fast. Technology is changing fast. Look at, on electrical, government is making policies, is doing some innovation, batteries changing, but none say beyond what will happen on the line here. So coming back to your question, the best part is that the businesses are getting redefined. Most of the places, inefficient processes, inefficient and consumer non-friendly technologies or processes are going out of the window, and hence every business is getting a. So I would welcome in this 19 which business model. So earlier we were a financial services company which was tech enabled. Today I can tell you we are a tech company which is also into finance. As I say it, I'm very very much aware that there's a lot more to be done the next 2-3 quarters that you will see from us. But look at the way we have changed from a financial services which is tech enabled to a tech company which wants to be in finance. And when I say it, I know that today our competition is not from other banks or other startups like Upstox, Grow, and Zerodha. Our business competition would also be from Amazon, Paytm, PhonePe of the world. So, I'm very excited to be alive, and I am very excited to be part of this organization. I'm sure customer is the ultimate king. They are the ultimate winner. This will bring us more experiential businesses. This will be price efficient. Customer will have choices, and we will innovate to make customers win with their equity market and mutual fund investment. So that's how I see it.
I think you put that very fabulously, right? A tech-enabled company in finance. I think that's a wonderful innovational transformation is the way I look at it. And I would like to put forth that particular concept. Of course, innovation has, it's not a matter of choice today, right? It is a must-have. It is the way to go. We spoke about the key ingredients and how digital transformations and technology enablement are vehicles of e-commerce success. We spoke about the vehicle. Now let's talk about what runs the vehicle. The fuel, right? One that drives consistency. And that is highly and solely dependent on data-driven decisions. I'd like to quickly take a sense from the panel in the room right away to check, do you believe that data is the sole fuel to drive the entire booming or the boom in e-commerce? What's your take? Let's start off with Mehriyar.
So Shibani, I just want to touch one piece out here before I talk about data. One is the product-driven approach. I think a differentiator value for every company is a product-driven approach. What you believe in as a value, what you want to deliver to the customer, and that is going to be your backbone in setting up a futuristic role model or model of business that you will have to generate and provide to your customers. I think that is very, very priority. So coming back to data today, I think the churn of data that you see today, which is getting generated internally with all your processes, all your working and offering to the customers, there is tons of it. And I think that is running to petabytes of situations wherever you hold it, whether you hold it on the cloud or a data center of your own. But when you talk about data today, I think the point has come for us to see that you also need to compare market related data.
Absolutely.
And I feel that today is the right time to see that what data you have, obviously that will give you a great amount of equity in terms of what you want to see. But when you relatively compare with the market related information and when you collate both of them and when you derive the results out, it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, and that's what we call the power of data driven decisions, right? Amit, would you like to quickly share, how at Future, you go ahead and take data-driven decisions. Collecting data is one, but using and utilizing that data to go ahead and make business decisions is another. And that's the medium that we are talking about. Your take, Amit.
My experience at Future has been very, very exciting, for this. So typically we marketers believe in a lot of emotions, a lot of art, a lot of euphoria which is there. But when it comes to taking some critical decision, it should be data driven because it completely takes away the emotions out of it. It tells you what are the factual things which is happening. Okay, when we build something, we have an intrinsic euphoria about the innovations that we have done, how it's going to change people's lives. But is it actually changing people's lives? Are the customer actually cooperating with you in whatever newness that you're bringing on the table? Are you actually adding any values to their lives? Either in terms of an immersive experience or if you're able to bring in a convenience factor to them. Okay, that all thing comes only through data, and there is a perspective of looking at data. Okay, where the human mind also needs to be trained to look at the data in a certain way. Because we start looking at gratifications, always that's how the brains are tuned into. So if the data is seen in a right perspective, it gives you a lot of insight. And that insight is what will fuel the next, changes that you bring into the system. So it's a process where, you have to monitor, you have to see the feedbacks, you have to go back and make those improvisation and repeat that process. And the key ingredient to do that is data-driven insights.
Absolutely. I think that's very spot on, what you just said, Amit, data is king. Data-driven decisions are key. And at Accenture, I must say this, right? We value every brand's data. We have built proprietary in-house assets that enable data capture, assimilation, and analysis for transition towards a mature data-driven organization. We spoke about consumer personalizations across providing spot-on recommendations, timely offers, focused campaigns, ensuring loyalty, customer retention, and all of this is an exact outcome of an efficient AI-driven data analysis. I guess we have about a couple more minutes until we wrap this up. I'm going to take a quick sanity check from Vipul. I know you have been off for a while. I want to know and understand, what does data mean to Reliance today?
Just to give you a perspective, Mr. Ambani, Mukesh Bhai, said data is the new oil, or the black gold. Yeah. He actually meant that, he was not only referring to the power of data in terms of internet penetration and all, but he was also talking about the consumer data, So he actually meant both. The thing, obviously, when I say this, the insight is consumer is king and we need to know more about the king, what the king wants, and we are just the part of the court. We have to serve the king, right? So jovially put it. But yes, on a serious note, the technology which is going to define the 2022 and beyond is the affordable phone which Jio is launching with Google. That is going to be a game changer, because it is going to give you a different experience. Especially I'm talking about tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, tier 6 towns. So this, when a smartphone is given to a consumer, there's a lot of data collection which can happen, and also the seamless experience of the consumer when they are online. So that is one. Second is the 5G, which Government of India Telecom Department is doing. 5G is going to be a key enabler of data in the years to come. Wearables are going to be big. And payments, people might forget. Today, I actually don't carry my wallet. I carry my phone. Tomorrow, I wish I can leave my phone also behind. I just carry my wearables, right? And I make payment through my NFC, through my wearables. So that is going to be future, and one needs to focus on those upcoming technology and keep yourself as a brand, future ready for all these technologies.
Yep, absolutely. Data is oil. We are not forgetting that absolutely at all. And like you said, wearables is key. Why? Because the future is hyper. The future is hyper experiential, hyper personalized, and hyper sensitive, right? On that note, I think I'm going to call this entire session away. And I'd like to probably just put one food for thought down. We spoke about the future, and we are coming back again tomorrow with the innovation from Accenture Labs, with a demo on how some of our patented assets are driving the future of e-commerce. So you can see them live in action tomorrow at 12:55. And that's the future for us at Accenture. I've had a lovely time having this conversation with all you out here. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shibani. Pleasure to speak to you and everyone in the panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.